Welcome to Midtown Manhattan for the fourth game of the Eastern Conference semifinal between the Quebec Nordiques and the New York Rangers. The Rangers currently lead the series 2-1. Tonight's goalies are Jamie McLennan versus John Van Beesbroek. Here are the starting lineups for the two teams.
It's 10:30 in the morning. Godzilla is hugely popular in Tokyo.
That's in the dirt, 2-2 on Posada.
Matsui played for 10 years for the Yomiuri Giants, 7 years for the Yankees.
Strikeout number 2. In the second inning, it's out number 1. Yankees led the major leagues with 244 home runs during the regular season. That was their 20th pop of this postseason. 2 out. Off the bat of Robinson Cano and right out Chase Utley. Bases empty for Nick Swisher. Here are the numbers for Swisher, who went deep batting right-handed back in Philadelphia, and who has 2 hits and 12 runs during this World Series, and just 6 hits and 44 runs during this season. He did not start against Martinez in 2 runs. Swisher runs back from an 88-mile-an-hour fastball up, 2 balls, 2 strikes.
Purpose of that fastball up and in to go away with the changeup.
Swisher pumps it up. Gallo left, a long run for Francisco, who's there to end the inning. Hideki Matsui with 2 home runs in this World Series against Pedro Martinez, including this shot in the second. He's up 2-2. Francisco. Carlos Ruiz is next, and then Jimmy Rollins. Phillies have a hit, a walk, hit into a double play, strike to the right. The count evens at a blind strike to the player who was thrown in the Cliff Lee deal between the Phillies and the Indians. That misses, ball 2, 2-1.
scored by number 68, assisted by number 36, Marie Raven, and number 66, Mario Ramirez.
Trying to get on, turn the lineup over, and hope that Jimmy Rollins can figure out Andy Pettit. Rollins bounced out the short his first time. 2-1 pitch is center field. Back is Gardner on the run. He watches it hit off the wall. Gets behind him, and Ruiz will turn and go. Try to turn it into a triple and make it with one out in the third. Carlos Ruiz watched that the entire way and pushed it with one out and made it into third with a triple.
That's when there's a chance to get to third base with one out, that's what you try to do. So you can score on something other than a base hit. It's a too far away from Brett Gardner. Looked like it hit Rollins with 1 RBI this World Series, 4 RBIs this postseason. Did drive home 77 during the regular year. Out of that leadoff spot, he can produce runs. And there's one into right field. He just produced a run here. Tagging is Ruiz, scoring without a play, and it's a 1-run game. Sac fly by Rollins, and it's 2-1 here in the third inning. Once again, players refer to those as cheap runs when you can get on third base with less than 2 outs and score on something other than a hit.
Single bounced off the plate his first time.
1 minute left in the third period.
Nick Swisher. And the Phillies are on the board. A line triple by Ruiz. Scored on a sac fly by Rollins. 2-1. Switched up to number 9 now.
To number 11. Rolling, this is 2 minutes for charging. Number 22, Charles Van Allen.
One-run ball game as Gardner sticks the bat out. Knocks his foul out of play. Here's tonight's Jeep trivia question. When was the last World Series Game 7 at Yankee Stadium? One on the other side.
The final score is Pittsburgh 5, Hartford 3.
We've already shown the cover of the Post, the New York Post, where they have Gabriel's head superimposed onto the body of a baby. As Gardner strikes out, third strikeout, 86 pitch up. It was almost surreal.
I was only 18 years old when I came to Pittsburgh, didn't know what to expect. I just wanted to start my career playing NHL, having a chance to one day hopefully lift the Stanley Cup at Sunrise.
Let's take a little walk down memory lane.
Stanley Cup final. It's a huge, but was probably the biggest game for me.
I had never seen a city like that. It was so hard to keep your emotions in check for that game.
To win a championship, your best players got to be your best player.
I just remembered, like, as a player, how hard it is to win.
And even though they've had these tests, they've survived them and come above.
You jump to the league, it's over.
This is organization stories. Not just championships, but stories.
You look back and see what's happened in 50 years. The Penguins are one of the most successful franchises, really, in this league. It's phenomenal. You can't make this stuff up.
After 50 years, it's easy to forget that a storied history often starts from the humblest of beginnings. Simply the spark of an idea in one person's brain.
Cross-checking.
I'm sure there are a lot of people who really don't even
2
know a
minutes
lot about
for
how the
cross-checking.
Penguins were hatched. The original owner of the Penguins, what the story was behind Pittsburgh even getting an NHL franchise.
After the first period, the score is the Rangers 0, Quebec 0.
Who would have thought it?
In the 1960s, Pittsburgh was a town trying to shed its image as the smoky city it had been throughout the Industrial Revolution.
Pittsburgh was totally in need of revitalization across the board. It was a city, coming out of an era and about to enter a new one.
The town's newest gem was the Civic Arena. It was built primarily to house the Civic Light Opera, but a 30-year-old local senator had another vision for it when he heard that the National Hockey League would be expanding. He jumped into action to put together an investment.
The wealthy Pittsburgh families that were very much behind the initial efforts of rebuilding Pittsburgh had been political supporters of mine. And I was able to convince them that Pittsburgh would never be considered a big league city without having a big league hockey team.
Pittsburgh had a hockey team before 1967, but it was a minor league team. And sometimes when you think of that, you think minor league city. The NHL was in some really big markets, New York and Boston, Chicago, obviously. Jack McGregor thought it would mean a lot if Pittsburgh was in that kind of group, to be included with those kinds of cities.
I had a lot of even close friends tell me I was out of my mind. Jack, you're overreaching. Pittsburgh is not a big league hockey team.
Luckily, Pittsburgh's most legendary sports owner did believe in McGregor's vision and came to the rescue when it looked as if the NHL wouldn't be coming to his city.
They got word to me that the two Norris brothers, who were 2 of the 6 votes, were leaning away from Pittsburgh towards Buffalo. So knowing that the brothers were well known for their horse racing enthusiasm, and knowing that Art Rooney also was well known, I called Art and asked him if he knew the Norris brothers. He said, I know them like the back of my hand, Jack. Why? I told him why. He said, I'm on over. I will get them each on the phone. And I sat there in wonderment. Art made it very clear that it would be personally embarrassing to him and to the Rooney family if Buffalo was selected over Pittsburgh. And he hung up and winked at me with his big cigar in his hand, saying, Jack, I think you just got those 2 votes.
And so the world's fastest big league sport, becoming in half a century a multi-million-dollar sector, goes on to even greater glory and ever greater pride. 6 new NHL cities and 6 new teams to ignite the passions of hometown fans.
Jack McGregor's wife actually picked the name of the team, Pittsburgh Penguins. She liked it for the alliteration, and the arena was called the Igloo. She was under the assumption that penguins live near igloos, which it turns out they do not, but it seemed to make sense to most of the public.
Some did wish they would have chosen a fiercer member of the animal kingdom.
There were some people who didn't love the name. Jack Rowley was the general manager of the team, and he didn't even like the name.
Someone came to him and said, by the way, we have a nickname now. We're going to be called the Penguins, and his reaction was, you're kidding.
It didn't help that in the original logo, the penguin was a bit overweight and wore a scarf.
Thank God we changed the logo.
In back of me, you look at the Civic Arena, where we'll play our 37 home games.
Well, we drafted a club that had experience, and we felt that we weren't going to try and tell the fans we're building for the future. Actually, we're trying to put the best club on the ice that we can this year from the players that were available. I don't think the age of them will hurt their play. Usually the veterans get stronger as the season goes on. It takes them usually a little longer to get in shape, as a matter of fact, and at the end of the year, they'll be real prime factors in the games that we have to win.
There was great prestige, obviously, for Pittsburgh to suddenly become a member of the National Hockey League. And one of those 6 teams that was added to the league in 1967. It was a very elite group.
I happen to have the puck with me. This is the puck that we dropped that night. The excitement took your breath away. It was close to a sellout. The fans were standing on their feet, screaming for the first 5 or 10 minutes into that game. An experience I'll never forget. It took many years before that many people showed up again.
Unfortunately, the early Penguins became known less for winning and more for unintentional conduct.
The first radio station was WEEP. Their mascot was a live penguin. They would bring a live penguin onto the ice.
Pete led the team with much fanfare onto the ice.
Dad had actually paid CCM to make a pair of skates for Pete.
But this idea quickly went south.
Pete was feeling very wobbly, and we had him examined by a vet, And the vet came up with a diagnosis of pneumonia. And I said, "You have to be kidding, doctor." Penguins live on ice. They don't get pneumonia.
McGregor had bought a South African penguin, which is not used to the ice. Pete was hospitalized, and it became an ongoing saga in the local press.
Day after day, I'll never forget, Pete lingers on. Pete's still alive. Pete fights pneumonia. It seemed like a week or 10 days went by before Pete finally died. He had been such a favorite of our fans, we decided to stuff him and put him on display in the lobby.
And the animal rights people didn't think that was such a great idea.
Pete was actually stolen from the lobby, never to be seen again.
Wouldn't it just be great if you were in Cannonsburg or somewhere and you're in a secondhand store and you're looking at some crap with your wife? Oh, I like this dress or this old piece of furniture, and you happen to see a stuffed penguin and it turns out to be it'd be more.
2 minutes for slashing.
I can honestly remember Pittsburgh when I was a young kid collecting hockey cards. And, you know, the Kenny Shinkles, the Ronnie Shocks, the Les Binkleys, these names and these jerseys, these light blue jerseys that we always thought were pretty cool in the early days, and to watch that team get better.
That was really the start of my career, the way I look at it. Just being able to play for Pittsburgh was a big thrill to me.
The Penguins weren't Stanley Cup contenders early on, but the team had an array of talented players, and one in particular that could have changed the course of their history.
Young Michel Briere, who led the team in assists with 32 and displayed tremendous poise and talent for a rookie centerman.
As a rookie during the 1969-70 season, Briere helped the Penguins surprise the league by making it to the second round of the playoffs.
Oh, I knew Michel Briere. He was a great player. We came out of northern Quebec, and all of a sudden, he became a star.
Young 20-year-old rookie Michael Briere, who last year for Shawinigan Falls, believe it or not, scored 75 goals.
But he was the kind of guy you had to see to appreciate the grace and the way he manufactured offense with his skating, a real slick player.
Oh, I noticed, Mike, at the beginning of the season, the other players took shots at you and pushed you around a little bit, but you seem to be fighting back now.
Yeah, that's what you have to do because they won't leave you alone. So I just, if you give me a stick, I give him a stick. That's all.
But that offseason, he was involved in a car crash, which left him in a coma for 11 months before he ultimately passed away. This was shortly before another Pittsburgh athlete who wore number 21 also died tragically. Roberto Clemente.
Unfortunately, the mishap that he had stopped it short. I'll tell you, it was a real tragedy to see him. And I think it probably set a lot of guys back for a while.
It lingered on for, I think, for years. You know, it was you're always reminded about it. You know, what would happen if he'd have been here.
Pacesetters in the Penguin scoring parade are Al McDonough, Roel McDonald, and Bill Allen.
I remember we'd go to a game and they'd have programs left over from the previous games and they'd give them away and I'd take them home and I memorized all the players on the team. And the older kids in the schoolyard used to grab me and say, "Morehouse, you know, can you tell me who's number 2 on the Penguins?" And I used to be able to repeat them. And I was getting D's in school, but I memorized like the whole roster. I knew everyone on the team. I remember the first goalie controversy between Jim Rutherford and Les Binkley. I was a Rutherford man even back then. Jim O'Shea was the goalie of our street hockey team, and he had Jim Rutherford's name painted on the back of the T-shirt of the Pauline Avenue Penguins. You know, just random memories of the Penguins and of it being kind of this new exciting thing in Pittsburgh.
I remember it seemed like being part of a special club. You know, that only a few people were interested in, but those people were very interested, like a secret society.
When I first came, I came in August of '74, and when I got here, the team itself actually was a pretty good hockey club. and the team had 9 20-plus goal scorers.
Sil Apps, Lowell McDonald, part of the century line with Pronovo.
Sil Apps, Lowell McDonald, and Jean Pronovo were known as the Century Line because they combined for over 100 goals for 4 straight seasons.
Pierre LaRouche was a rookie.
You know, Pierre was just such a popular player. I always like to say that Pierre was Mario before we had Mario. He wasn't at that level. He was a 50-goal scorer. He had all the moves.
I was 18 years old when I came here, and it was great. All of a sudden, you're in the NHL. You dream of being in the NHL.
LaRouche was actually so popular in the eyes of young female fans that the team ran a promotion in which one lucky girl could win a date with Pierre.
It was amazing. It was almost like the kissing booth. We did a kissing booth once. I had to go for $1 kiss in the mall.
After years of struggle, it seemed as if the team was about to turn the corner.
Really exciting, high-scoring team, and went into the playoffs and won an early series, and we're up 3-0. That was the famous year, up 3-0 in the Islanders.
After winning the first 3 games in the best-of-7 series, Pittsburgh dropped the next 3 and now faced a humiliating collapse in the series.
Yeah, I get nervous. If you can't get nervous about the hockey team, then it's no fun. Always nervous. My hands are sweaty. My pits are wet. But I'll be okay once I drop the puck.
It was the first of several times in Penguins history that a loss to the Islanders marked a dark turning point for the team.
They remain one of only a couple of teams in the history of the league to blow a 3-0 lead.
I have never cried as hard as I did as a 14-year-old kid. Just talking about it now is actually a bit rattling because, you know, it finally seemed like the team was going to turn the corner. It was really embarrassing.
Unfortunately, the team immediately after that series went bankrupt.
Just weeks after the collapse, the IRS claimed the Penguins owed the government more than $500,000 for not paying the withholding taxes they had collected from the players the previous season.
And you knew the team was in trouble. Pete Flaherty, the mayor, and his wife were trying to marshal support, but back then it just didn't have enough money. No one probably expected what would happen with that photo in the Pittsburgh Post of the padlock actually on the door.
It was tragic because it didn't just happen like off the heels of a terrible season where everything was falling apart and now the team's bankrupt. This was a really good hockey team that all of a sudden had its doors padlocked.
Number 20.
This was, you're out of money, you're shut down. We were all in shock and fear for the first time of many times that we were going to lose our team here in Pittsburgh.
The team was taken over by the NHL and only remained in Pittsburgh thanks to shopping mall magnate Edward J. DeBartolo Sr., who purchased the Penguins the very same year he bought the NFL's San Francisco 49ers. As they entered the 80s, the Pens ditched the light blue uniforms in favor of the black and gold worn by the Steelers and Pirates, who both won championships in 1979.
There's no question that's why they decided to go to the black and gold. We had been dubbed the City of Champions. They were clearly third in the marketplace, in fact, maybe even fourth behind Pitt football at that time. So they really tried to jump on the bandwagon by identifying with the City of Champions.
Led by players like Rick Kehoe and characters like Gary Risling, they tried to put a winner on the ice and fans in the seats.
It's Budweiser Sports Bag Night, Saturday, February 26th.
They made the playoffs in 1982, but seemed incapable of being more than just a middle-of-the-road franchise.
Throughout the history of the Penguins, we were always trying to patch together a team that could maybe make the playoffs. And so it was just a case of being mired in mediocrity for years. If you want to have a good team, you've got to build through the draft. You're going to have to be patient.
New Penguins coach, legendary Bruins goalie Eddie Johnston, set to establish this model in the organization. Looking at a long-term plan rather than a series of quick fixes.
We were giving away our picks before, and I was inclined. I told Mr. DeBarlo that I was not giving up our first-round pick.
The first-round pick in '84 was of particular interest. The Penguins were in the running to finish last and be in position to select him.
I was director of player personnel, and when we looked at all our reports, there's only one player that you got to draft to finish last.
Pro hockey beckons Lemieux this June. He will likely be the first pick in the NHL draft. While he's a superstar in Quebec, French Canada is not likely to be his home much
1 minute
longer.
left in the
Pittsburgh and
second
New Jersey
period.
hold the first 2 draft picks. Barring a trade, one of those teams will win the Lemieux Derby and try to build a franchise around this scoring machine.
I think that when you start with a club, a team like Montreal or Islanders or New York Rangers, it's more easier to start your career with a team like that. But if you're drafted by Pittsburgh or New Jersey or a team in last place, it's a big challenge, and I like challenges, so I would be very happy to go there anyway.
Combination of scoring and passing the puck, I think that there's none any superior in the junior hockey today. He's got speed. Big thing is he's a very, very dominant offensive hockey player, and I would be very, very happy.
After the second period, the score is the Rangers 1, Quebec 0.
Mario Lemieux, number 1 in our draft choice.
Some have speculated over the years that Pittsburgh tanked on purpose at the end of the season in order to outlose the Devils.
People are inclined to think that we threw the games. You don't do that. We just didn't have the quality of players, and it came down to us in, I think, Jersey. What I did, I brought up some kids that we had in our farm club, picked up a goalkeeper and that, just to try to make an evaluation of them,
Coincidentally, these new goalies turned out to be not very good. They gave up a lot of goals, and the Pens lost their way to the first overall pick.
You could see there were certain moves made, or guys that were not very good were getting called up, and you're like, why is this guy getting called up? It's because he wasn't very good, and they didn't want to be great. They knew what was at the end of the rainbow, and that was big number 66.
Still, some in the organization wanted to trade the pick when offers came pouring in.
We had some terrific offers. Minnesota offered us all their picks.
And you also had the Quebec Nordiques offering all the Stats brothers for
penalty
Mario.
to number 91.
Montreal offered a huge
Trade.
package.
2 minutes.
5 or 6 players featuring Guy Carbonneau to get Mario, and EJ was resolute and said no.
I made the statement to Mr. DeBarlo that I wasn't doing that, but I was keeping him. I was fortunate enough to play with Bobby Orr, and when you have a player like that comes around once in a lifetime, you don't miss him. You don't trade him.
Even as Pittsburgh underwent a cultural renaissance, its identity remained tied to its working-class roots. So it's only fitting that one of its greatest heroes hails from a working-class district of Montreal.
Pittsburgh, un premier choix de Pittsburgh, number 66, Mario Lemieux. When I announced the premier choix de Pittsburgh, numero 66, Mario Lemieux. That was the best thing that could ever happen to me and to the Pittsburgh Penguins.
Yeah, I do remember when I got drafted in '84 by Pittsburgh. I remember going to the airport here in Pittsburgh and having Paul Steigerwald pick me up. And I remember coming through the tunnel for the first time, and that's when I fell in love with the city. It's a beautiful city, beautiful sight, and that day I'll keep with me for the rest of my life.
We drive down the parkway. And I'm turned around in the seat like this, looking back, and I was looking at his hands. He had this cool 66 ring that somebody had given him. I just remember him having a regal, dignified quality about him. Very proud. He always sat with his chin up.
After one day in training camp, Mr. DeBarlo came. He said, thank God you didn't listen to some people.
Well, he certainly stood out to anybody because he was 6 foot 4, and he had a shyness about him that I loved. A quiet way to approach things.
just so good. We'll come through. Maybe I know something. Again.
You know, I was only 18 years old when I came to Pittsburgh, didn't know what to expect.
I'm kind of guy who don't speak too much. I like to be alone.
Rangers penalty to number 9, Adam Graves, 2 minutes for roughing.
I just wanted to start my career and having a chance to one day hopefully lift the Stanley Cup at center ice.
Who could have imagined the impact he would one day have on the entire city? The Penguins may have had a potential future star, but they still needed to get Pittsburgh to care. Well, they still had a long way to go.
First time I ever laid eyes on Mario Lemieux, he was making an appearance at a local Giant Eagle to sign autographs, and there was no one there. They just drafted the guy who would go on to become the best player in franchise history, in the sports history, and no one showed up to get his autograph at Giant Eagle with a live Penguin sitting next to him.
Wednesday night, it's the Lemieux debut as the boys of winter class of '84 open their home season against Vancouver. Mario Lemieux, Doug Bodger, Roger Belanger, and some other new boys mark their Pittsburgh debut this Wednesday night.
Tom Rooney was the president of the team back then, and he was a marketing guy at heart, and Paul Starrywall was the marketing director. They weren't the men of winter yet, they were the boys of winter. They were trying to sell youth.
Entire idea was to sort of paint these players as young, green players who are going to grow with the franchise. This is what the phrase was.
Come, watch the Pins grow.
Come, watch them grow.
The team and the local press were not afraid to push the envelope on what fans could expect of this new kid from Montreal in the years to come.
For Mario to live up to his expectations was going to be incredible. They were almost unfairly high. I remember the headline in the Post-Gazette on my story was, Penguins hope Lemieux can be their next Gretzky, and I argued with my sports editor. I said, I think that's putting too much pressure on this guy. He's 18 years old. He's Wayne Gretzky. But Mario was one of those rare athletes that was able to, he used that pressure. He thrived on pressure.
Lemieux embraced the Gretzky comparisons, and yet wanted to set himself apart, purposely taking Gretzky's number and turning it upside down.
Quebec penalty to number 9.
He immediately made another statement in his first game on his first shot.
Lemieux's back breakaway. Lemieux left side, walking to the net. Here he comes. He shoots and scores. Mario Lemieux. Oh, great balls of fire.
He came right out on the very first shift, stole the puck from Raymond Bourque, went in and scored on a breakaway, and it was like, see what we've been telling you? Mario Lemieux is going to be Mario Lemieux.
In his first home game, Lemieux made an entirely different kind of impression.
Hit on the play by Doug Hallward. Hallward spins him around. Fight breaks out. Lemieux and Gary Lupo in a fight. Oh, my. Lemieux in a mismatch here with Lupo, and Lemieux whacking away. And he's really going on Lupo. Well, Lupo trying to come back on him. Lemieux with some undercuts, and this just a mismatch. Now, Garrett jumps in, and everybody goes for a man.
In the weeks, months, and years that followed, Lemieux continued to let his hands do his talking. He was a new breed, something never before seen in the NHL.
Coming to the net, Lemieux makes his move, and he shoots and scores.
Mario Lemieux, to me, there isn't another player in the league I was more intimidated by. He could embarrass you in every way.
In an era when most skilled players were 5'10" or 5'11", Lemieux stood 6'4", with long arms and a figure skater's grace and poise.
I had never before seen a guy with that size and those kind of hands and that kind of vision.
Up the ice for Brown to Lemieux. Lemieux looking, goes right in, scores!
You saw the composure, you saw the reach, you saw the finishing cut.
He had it all, a one-on-one. He could beat anybody at any time.
Watch the fake he lays on Hextall. He'll open up the blade of his stick right there, as if he was going to shoot, and then he simply pulls it.
I played with Wayne Gretzky on 2 occasions. Wayne made everybody dangerous, but one-on-one, if I was to pick one player that I don't want to shoot on, 66 is.
Harry crosses the center ice stripe. The pass to Lemieux through traffic. Hit on Rudy. He scores!
Mario was a player that was, such an impact. He was beyond anybody else.
I think he's been so important to our hockey team, and he's been a great asset to this team and a great asset to that team.
Pittsburgh fans now had in front of them one of the greatest talents in the history of the sport, and he awoke a passion in the city that made them realize this could maybe be a big league hockey town after all.
Hockey's #1 superstar may be Wayne Gretzky, but #2 lives right here in this apartment building in Pittsburgh. He's Mario Lemieux, a young man who possibly saved the franchise from extinction. In the early stages of what promises to be a brilliant career, Mario Lemieux has pumped new life into hockey in Pittsburgh. In fact, he's been the savior of the Pittsburgh franchise. In Mario's apartment, Sports Illustrated arrives to take some photographs. Here's a magazine with limited space for hockey, and only the superstars get the full treatment.
You get tired of posing for photographs, having people invade your apartment, take all your time?
It's tough, but I think it's part of the job. I guess when you're successful, you have to be around all these people and take time with them, and you don't have to do that listening to you.
Mario Lemieux had become a household name, and even a pitchman on TV.
Look, Mario, I have a blazer just like you do.
Come on, let's take a ride in the real thing.
Wow.
He offered the rare ability to promote a product in 2 languages at once.
Au milieu de l'après-midi, stickers, ça me fait très touché. Stickers will always be on my team. Les bons après-midi, stickers, c'est le meilleur.
In Pittsburgh, the sight of a program of line and pickup games that didn't involve football or baseball would have been unthinkable a decade earlier. The times have changed. The idea that this was the city of champions was fading quickly.
The 80s were a weird decade for Pittsburgh because I don't think Pittsburgh was feeling too proud of itself at that time. The steel industry had pretty much collapsed. We didn't have the Steelers to be proud of as much because they weren't winning, and the Pirates had gone through some horrible court battles with drugs. I mean, it was just not a good time. So he's definitely the #1 athlete in the city at that time. But his team is not very good.
Mario, I mean, he was the whole deal. That's why you went to the game. You went to see Mario Lemieux.
In this sport, you can have a great player like Lemieux, but he's still only playing 21 or 22 at the most out of 60 minutes. So you have to have other players too, because 2/3 of the time your greatest player's on the bench.
Some of us think that in a year or two, you are going to give Mr. Gretzky quite a run for the scoring title. Is that one of your ambitions?
I think it is. Gretzky's got a good team with him. He's got Curry, Coffey, and all these guys, Mason and Anderson. And I think that's going to come in Pittsburgh. And when you have a lot of good players with you, you can get a lot of assists and goals.
That help was coming even sooner than Lemieux expected.
When EJ pulled the trigger on the deal with Edmonton for Paul Coffey, everybody stood up and took notice. Whoa! These ain't your same old Penguins.
November 24th, 1987 is one of the biggest days in Penguin history. That's the day the 6-player deal with the Edmonton Oilers was finalized and Paul Coffey became a member of the Penguins, a situation he really wanted.
Well, I was very excited when I got traded to Pittsburgh. I think I participated in the Canada Cup and saw what kind of player and what kind of person Mario was. And when I found out there was interest in coming to Pittsburgh, I was very, very excited.
I was itching to play hockey for 8 weeks, and I was fortunate and lucky, I guess, that the Pittsburgh Penguins did pick me up and were able to work out a trade with the Oilers.
Paul Coffey is the only player in the NHL who's an offensive threat in his own end of the ring. He turns defense into offense faster than you can say Bobby Orr. Coaches call it the transition game.
There were audible gasps at the arena when Coffey was coming out behind the net with the puck. You'd never seen a Penguin skate that fast. He was one of the top 5 NHL players at that time. He won Stanley Cups in Edmonton. He was the most dynamic offensive defenseman, and you really got a sense that now Mario has a peak.
Pass goes into skates of Rouse, broken up there by Coffey. Here comes Lemieux. Lemieux sails and he scores! Mario Lemieux, and it's 2-0 Pittsburgh. Boy, you do not give him the puck in that situation.
Now you had the great center and the great offensive defenseman. The acquisition of Coffey was the first time that I think a lot of people thought, wow, this team might win the Stanley Cup someday, and it might not be all that far off. You could not think that in the first 2 decades of the franchise.
That year, Lemieux scored 168 points, ousting Wayne Gretzky as the NHL scoring champion and winning the league's award for most valuable player. Coffey's experience helped Lemieux go to another level and improve the culture of the entire franchise.
That summer, Mr. Barlow called 5 of us down to Youngstown and talked about what we thought the team needed. So I said we need to instill some pride in that dressing room. You know, Eddie Johnson was a fabulous general manager at the time, and he went out and got us a brand new skate sharpening machine. I mean, it sounds like something small, but and the dressing room, I think, was rebuilt
Heading into
that summer.
overtime, the score is the Rangers 2, Quebec 2.
The conditions were not the best early in my career, and when Paul came, certainly I think he changed a little bit of that.
The following season, Lemieux logged one of his most unbelievable accomplishments.
On New Year's Eve of 1988, you know, it was just another game where we were expecting Mario to do big things. When it was all over, we realized that he had accomplished something that nobody had ever accomplished, or will ever accomplish in the history of the game.
Lemieux centering, score! Mario Lemieux centering pass!
And here he makes that good, strong move to the outside, then pass the puck in front of the net, and actually hits off Greg Willan's foot.
He had scored goals in every possible way.
They've got the full 2 minutes. Score! Mario Lemieux, the perfect trick! Lemieux. That's it! 4 goals from Mario Lemieux, a penalty shot. 5 seconds, that's going to be it. Caulfield has Lemieux, he got it to him. 2 seconds, he shoots, he scores, it will count!
I had no clue, actually, until after the game somebody told me that I had scored 5 different ways. That was a chance of a lifetime.
It was a season for creating new milestones and also putting an end to the most embarrassing losing streak in the club's history.
15 years is a long time. 39-3. It's hard for people who didn't experience it to understand how frustrating it was.
A lot of people I hung out with would have given their right arm to punch Bobby Clark just once.
It was years of futility that needed to end before the Penguins could be taken seriously, and a local radio team decided they needed to do something about it.
It just made no sense that they had one Philadelphia facility. And then we started talking about different things we could do, and I don't remember who exactly came up with the idea. It was a group of us, and we were all youths. So we came up with the idea, well, let's go there, and we'll go down on the ice. And then somebody came up with the voodoo doctors, and okay, we'll lift the curse. Everybody else was just staring at us like, who are these nuts? Why are they here? What is going on? Why can't somebody be in control? It had absolutely nothing whatsoever to do with us. Nothing. But we happened to be there and rode on their coattails.
Definitely, after 14, 15 years, it was getting a little bit ridiculous.
When you start knocking down these roadblocks that have gotten your way, that are kind of inhibited and prevented you from getting to the playoffs, from getting a little bit further up that ladder, then you start believing.
The Pens also ended a 6-year playoff drought. They swept the Rangers in the first round and then went on to face the Flyers in the quarterfinals. They lost the series in 7 games, but it was clear to everyone something special was happening at the Igloo.
Against the Flyers in that series, you could tell the Penguins were now a rival. you could see that they were now going to be a force.
This is a tough loss. When you reflect on it, that's got to mean something.
Well, it's important for us to, we were in the playoffs this year and get some experience. I think the Flyers proved that in the playoffs you need some guys that have been there before, and we had a few players that were there before, but not enough, I guess.
I think the first time we made the playoffs, I knew that we were on our way to having some pieces to go on in the next few years and having the chance to play for the Stanley Cup.
We're an up-and-coming team. By all means, we're not an old hockey club. A lot of the teams in our division are old, and if we can keep getting better every year, we're going to be a team to reckon with, and hopefully we can build off that.
But the following season, the odds seemed stacked against the Penguins again. Lemieux was perhaps the best player in hockey, all the while suffering through severe back pain.
Yeah, my back gave me a lot of problems throughout my career, but especially in the late 80s, early 90s.
I mean, he had to have people at times lace his skates up. He had to have people help put his bags on the overhead.
When Mario started to have the physical problems, you wondered if it might all go bad, because this was a franchise for, in the past, it had gone bad so often.
I had missed 6 weeks because of my back. I went to LA trying to rehab and decided to come back last game of the season against Buffalo.
In that game, they suffered a heart-wrenching overtime loss that knocked them out of the playoffs. But as has often happened in their history, it turned out to be a lucky time to lose.
I've always said that the Penguins should induct Uwe Krupp into the Penguins Hall of Fame, because he's the one who scored that goal that knocked them out of the playoffs.
I don't even think Penguin fans even realize today that was the best loss ever. It allowed the Penguins the next year to draft the number 5 position.
We picked 5th, and because of that, we got the great guy. He was probably the best player in the draft. And as we can see, he's had a very long career.
At the draft, all the top teams were interviewing Yager. And the Army told all of them he wasn't coming over. He said, I'm staying in Czech, I'm not coming over right away. When we interviewed him, he said, I'll come right away. He idolized Mario, and he wanted to play with the Penguins. So he kind of lied to everybody else, and he was left open for us to pick. I had to go over to Czech to pay the team he played for, kind of a ransom thing. Well, I said, here's a check, this is what we'll pay. That was the reason why.
They want me to come like 2 months before the training camp to learn English. Put me in the Berlin school. I hate it so much.
Rajan.
I was thinking to check film, it was very good. And the next time they did take care of me, so it was awesome.
I worked as a reporter for KDK TV as well as an announcer for the team, so I had kind of an inside track. So I requested that I could spend some time with the Jaromír Jágr, and we went to Ross Park Mall, which had recently opened. And I just know that I was there to just kind of see how he would react to the culture.
What size is that?
He doesn't know, he can't see him.
Okay.
Paul Steigerwald took him shopping, and all he wanted was blue jeans and blue jeans jackets. He couldn't get those in the Czech Republic.
Oh, the yellow jeans. Yeah, that's my jeans. Yeah, that's right.
He captivated the city with his youthful, unbridled enthusiasm for America.
I like metal. Metal? Like who? Any band?
Bon Jovi.
Bon Jovi?
We want your autograph too.
And the next thing he did, he bought like a hot rod car. And it was sort of legendary how many speeding tickets he got. Not bad for a thing that.
This time period was a microcosm of the Penguins' entire history. They lost at just the right moment and drafted a future Hall of Famer, but at the same time had another.
The final score is Quebec 2, the Rangers 3.
I remember having my first back surgery before the '91 season, and After that, I got a back infection where I was in bed for 3 months, and I really didn't know if I was going to be able to walk again.
Here are the
You wondered
three
if he was gonna be
stars
able
of
to
tonight's
walk.
game.
Never mind, play hockey.
Lemieux would miss at least 50 games. GM Craig Patrick had to figure out how to put not just a contender on the ice, but a team that would complement